If it please the court and my honorable defense counsel, my colleagues at the bar, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I stand here before you addressing the signal issue as to why or why not you should write your book, your story. And I will tell you that I'm going to hope that you will answer that in very short time in the affirmative, that you will say yes to that effort, period. I ask you as a curative to not be struggling, not be frightened or intimidated by the idea of your writing something down and providing it to somebody for their interest and enjoyment. And I'll give you a few reasons why that I think are core. One, if you truly have a story you want to write and truly want to tell, then it is therapeutic for you to sit down and do that. And once you write it, not only is it therapeutic, it is also the most wonderful feeling in the world that there is my book, there is my story. I actually did it. As we all know, ladies and gentlemen, many, many people will say, oh, I think I'll write a book. Oh, I think I'll write a book. But very, very, very few of them do it. So in order for you to step over that threshold of reality and begin to write your book, you've crossed the Rubicon. You cannot turn back. You must not turn back, because then you're being unfaithful to yourself. The other things are this wonderful sense, and I've touched on this, of self-satisfaction, that you have accomplished something that very few people will ever do. And that is unique. And somebody says, well, you're a lawyer, Vernon. You have war stories. You have tall tales. You have characters. It's all true. Every one of you, ladies and gentlemen of this jury, have characters and tall tales and wonderful stories. Not everything has to be about lawyers, nor should it be, my God. So I encourage you in these few minutes that we've been able to be together, write your story, write your book, sound your friends, sound your family, be persistent, but work on it and do it, because to not do it is you are letting yourself down. And the one person in this world you don't want to let down is yourself. I appreciate your time and attention, and I suggest you get to writing.
Order in the court.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. I have an amazing author on here today, and if things get really out of hand, he can get us out of a bind. He's got a great legal background, and we're going to learn a lot, and we're going to find out how a mother's wish has turned into a life of writing. It's so great to have Vernon Glenn on the podcast. Vernon, welcome to Living the Next Chapter.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So you are retired from law. I'm sure that you can't just hang up your hat, though, and never think about law. Tell us about your legal career. I'm fascinated to kind of hear a little bit about this.
You're right. We were all taught the law is a jealous mistress, and indeed she is. And I never intended on being a lawyer. I never figured I'd get out of law school alive. I never figured I'd pass the state bar, well, South Carolina and North Carolina. And I never envisioned that I would end up in the courtroom very quickly. But I did. And it's been a heck of a fine ride, and I've loved it. And it sort of lends itself, I think, to writing, because we had to write briefs and submissions and motions and do all sorts of things. And you had to learn to write cogently and efficiently. And that sort of fed itself into becoming what I am, whatever I am now, which is a sort of, I suppose, a budding author. Could I say that? I don't know. But this is...
You could say whatever you want.
Well, I mean, I tell people I have not retired. I've only changed planes. And 45 years in the courtroom, or getting ready to go to the courtroom, was terrifically interesting and fun and challenging and often rewarding. And we lost some, but we did all right. We did fine. And we kept our brains and our reputation intact. And I was able to walk away without there being any erosion that I am aware of in my skills. And I haven't slipped much. I get tired at the end of the day sometime, but that's only because I stayed up too late the night before.
Okay, so I have to know, can you please demystify maybe a very popular Hollywood version of the legal system that when you see this in movies or television, you're like, oh, please stop. Is there something that's like, that's not real. That's not how it works.
Well, I can tell you what the good ones are. And maybe that's a better way to go about it.
Good.
My cousin Vinny is used as a training film for young lawyers. It's exquisitely accurate in terms of all sorts of nuances, examination, cross-examination, witness preparation, conduct toward the bench. It's just a beautiful movie, and it's also very, very funny and engaging. There is a movie that's kind of obscure. It's called The Verdict. Paul Newman is in it, and he's a personal injury lawyer in Boston who has landed a whale, a big case against a Catholic Charities Hospital in Boston. And it's very realistic. Now, of course, they have the sort of dramatic insert that Newman has a drinking problem. He wrestles with it. He has scatologically sort of busted up romance with some woman. But the nuts and bolts of getting a malpractice case ready to go to trial are right there. It's right on the money. 12 Angry Men, a classic dissertation in my mind about what juries go through as they wrestle. So many lawyers, and this includes experienced lawyers, lose sight of the fact that the jury is the filter through which everything passes. So you've got to think about, what's the jury going to do with this? What are the demographics of your jurors? Where are these people? Where do you live in this world? And I have I should have brought it. It's in the next room. I have a egg carton that I took 12 little Tykes people years and years and years ago, 35 years ago, and put them in there, glued them in there with super glue that hardened, and they're my little jury box. And I used to show that to prospective clients in trials. You show it to the court, say, this is you. This is who you are. You are the ultimate finders of the facts, and you're really important. So we need to educate you as best we can, and we hope you'll like our side of the story. Oh, there's lots of good stuff out there. John Grisham's books are interesting. I've met him a couple of times and have practiced law with some guys from Mississippi who know him real well and have done a lot of stuff with him over the year. His stuff is good, but of course he's now so successful that he's gone off on any number of other tangents, subjects, and things like that. John Mortimer's Rumpole of the Bailey series, perfect. I mean, people forget, things sort of pass as time goes by. Mortimer was an absolute whiz kid, and Rumpole, the barrister, he gets it honest, and wonderful stuff to read. So there are lots of things. The rest of it is, be careful. Because it's great to be entertaining, but only within the scope of what's allowable. So you can't take license the way, if you will, Hollywood and other sources such as that oftentimes do. But I would say my two favorites, three, My Cousin Vinny, The Verdict, and 12 Angry Men.
There we go. Now we have some homework. Now we have to go back and rewatch that with that new lens.
Well, they're all fun.
And, right?
They're all fun. And let's see. you can't make a fool of yourself in the courtroom. And so all these clown acts that are often portrayed, they're just completely unrealistic.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a funny story. There was a terrific lawyer, he's gone now, up in Winston-Salem, named Norwood Robinson. And Norwood was a good friend of mine and a good friend of my parents. And Norwood was bombastic. There was no question. He went to the United States Military Academy, and then he went to Duke University Law School, and he was a powerhouse. It was like having a grizzly bear show up in your trial. He was a wonderful guy, a wonderful sense of humor, but he really was bombastic. And he was trying an antitrust case in federal court in Winston-Salem some years ago. And it was the case, the accusation was that a group of tobacco warehouse owners had gotten together to collude to fix prices and to keep the price of their tobacco in their warehouses being sold, keep that down. Well, Norwood was the lead lawyer for that group of warehouse people. And Norwood always wanted to be on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. He made no bones about it. He wanted to be there. So he is trying this case. And he thought it was all going just beautifully. And he was making his closing argument. And finally, a little old lady juror in the front row of the federal courthouse in Winston-Salem looked up and said, "Would you stop shouting at us?" And Norwood realized at that particular sudden moment that he was in some deep trouble here.
Yeah.
And then he reinvigorated his effort. And the little old lady said, "Would you please get out of the jury box? You're not supposed to be in here." He had stepped up into the jury box. Well, anyway, the jury came back with a verdict against the warehouse owners of some enormous sum. At one point, it was the largest verdict, commercial verdict in the history of the United States. Plus, the damages, because it was antitrust, were to be tripled or trebled. And so here's this big article on the front page of the Wall Street Journal about this disaster for the defense in this case. And somebody said, "Well, Norwood, you got to be on the front page of the Wall Street Journal." He said, "That's why I didn't come out of my house for 2 weeks."
I can just see him stepping over the wall into the jury box.
You've got to be careful. You have to pay attention. And the same thing is true in everything. I mean, body language, distance, being able to read signs and whomever else you're trying to communicate with.
Yeah.
And that's what writing is about. Somebody, who did I hear say this? It's like putting a lens. You're in all the activity is going on down below you. You're on sort of balcony level, and you're looking down, and here are all the participants. And there's conflict. There's always conflict. Nobody wants to read Little Bo Peep and her sheep. Well, I guess some children do, and you've got to be able to see with the lens of realism when you're looking down into that assemblage. Who are these people? How are they acting? Are they acting the way ordinary people would in extraordinary circumstances? And that's a real good way to go about it. Because if it doesn't resonate, if it doesn't ring clear, if it's tortured, we were laughing. I was in Chapel Hill this past weekend watching football game and all that. And we were laughing about, somebody said, well, you were tardy. And they said, nobody uses that word anymore. If you look at somebody and say, well, you're tardy, well, what happened to late? But at any rate, it's that sort of thing where don't get too creative. I had the privilege of listening to, oh Lord, what's her name? She's a wonderful author. She's prolific. It'll come to me in a minute. One of her books, her essays are in my den right now. But she said, I spend about 80% of my writing time thinking about my book, the book I'm working on. I only spend about, Joyce Carol Oates, I only spend about 20% really writing.
Wow.
And I think, and she still, I think this is accurate, as of last year, she was still teaching a full load at Princeton. And she spent a lot of time, she told us, walking and riding her bicycle and thinking about what she wanted to write about. And that's always been helpful for me. I can remember when I really first got started on this, going in this direction, I would tell a good story. Trial lawyers need to be able to do that. It just comes with the territory. And I told a good story one night in a bar with a bunch of friends. And people said, as they have so often said over the years, well, you ought to write a book. You ought to write a book. Why don't you write a book? And I said, well, that's very kind of you. And thank you so much. And I appreciate that. And a good friend of mine pulled me aside, somebody I'd known for a long time, and said, I want to talk to you about something. I said, what's that? He said, write the damn book. I'm tired of hearing this. Write it or decline. And it was a challenge. And I went home a couple of days later and got on my little laptop. And I was lucky. I had two stories that was swimming around in my life. One involving my family, one involving my professional work. And it came together. I hooked it up and I was off and running.
Nice.
And now you just steal your inspiration wherever you can. This fourth book I'm working on is going to begin with a stripper in New York City, a high-end stripper. And I got her name. Her name was gifted to me on the cooking channel because someone was talking about they were going to encrust a piece of fish with crispy panko. And I went, boy, what a name for a stripper. Crispy panko.
Panko.
Just take the C out and put the K in, and you've really got something trashy. It's just right there. So you just get it. And somebody said, I steal rapaciously from everyone that if I can. Yeah. And who was it that be aware? Somebody said, be aware of everything around you. And if you go through your day, you don't necessarily have to be hyper vigilant, but it helps to pay attention. You will see stuff that you can use in your writing. I think I would suggest everybody should have notebooks, workbooks, whatever. What happened in your day? What did you see that was intriguing to you? What is something? And you can just write little notes, and then you go back and look at them. I've got them all over the place in here. And it's fun. And it's, where can I use this? People, places, names. Always need to put food in there. You just got to put some food in there. And spirituous liquors and bad behavior. You have to have all of them from my point of view. And, you have to have a good, you have to have the good guys and you have to have the bad guys. And of course, I've been asked many times recently, I would take it you are probably familiar with the Murdoch saga. And so lots of folks say to me, well, why don't you write about the Murdoch situation? I said, no. I might steal a little something here and I might steal a little something there, but I couldn't anymore write about that thing. It'd be like the Encyclopedia Britannica. It would go on and on and on. And, but an experience I had, I worked with that firm some years ago on a couple of malpractice cases. Didn't work with Mr. Murdoch, but worked with younger lawyers in the firm who were very, very good lawyers, and they knew what they were doing, and we got good results. So I can reach back, go down memory lane, and say, "Well, that's in my basket too. Where can I use that?"
Nice.
So,
So you're drawing from so many resources, different stories. And somebody told me in a similar fashion, they said, like a sweater or a suit jacket that collects lint.
Yeah.
And all that stuff, let life stick to you.
Absolutely. That's
as
a
you
great
live life. Just
that.
let it stick, right? So then you're like, what is this? What's this? And you're just peeling these things off.
I'm going to steal that now.
There you go.
That's a great one. Let your life be a lint roller.
There you go. Just let it stick.
Yeah.
And I think the more we can keep our heads up and experience life, the more we're going to learn.
Absolutely.
The better person we're going to be.
And there's got to be a desire to do it. Or to give it a try. And with some people, they'd like to do that, but they really don't have the self-initiative to do it. They may be wonderfully successful and productive in so many other things, but the idea of sitting down and saying, all right, either in longhand or on a laptop or whatever, I'm going to write a book. And of course, all I do is fiction based upon, I have so many true stories, war stories, so I can weave stuff in and out, in and out. A lot of people don't have that. I think trial law lends itself to that in such a fun, good way. For me to do, I love history. I love military history, but I would never undertake the writing of a work of history. It's just, I don't have the inclination to do the research necessary to get it correct. Whereas with fiction, you just run. You just say, okay, I got this idea. Now what am I going to do? And I keep
just running with scissors. Yeah.
Right. And they're all over the place. I have, as I said, I suggest people just get a little notebook and carry it with you.
Yeah.
And I've got 30 of those easy lying around this house.
Wow.
And you just, I've been at it a long time, so you fill them up.
There you go. One of your earliest releases came through an unlikely source. Your mother stepped in and helped kick off a little bit of your writing career. Can you talk a little bit about that story?
Yes. My freshman year at Chapel Hill, I would sit in my dorm room, Graham Dormitory, room 308.
You remember?
Well, yeah, and I do remember. I just drove by there the other day, and I'd get it in my head. We thought we were very bohemian, and of course we were anything but. But I had a fraternity brother, and he'd sit up there with me, and we'd drink bourbon, early times bourbon, out of the bottle, get some liquid inspiration. And we smoked cigarettes because that was back when we smoked, and I was from Winston-Salem. It was almost a requirement of childhood to smoke. And I wrote poetry. And it poured out of me for a number of months. And I had this sheath of poems in a folder, which I took home after my freshman year and stuffed them. I had a big old desk up in my room, and I stuffed them in the back drawer and forgot about them. And my mother, rifling through my desk when I was away, looking to see what sort of salacious letters I may have sent or received from the distaff side, discovered these poems. And she just thought, oh, these are just remarkable. Oh, yes. Oh, well, of course, mother. And so she waved them under my nose and said, why have you been keeping these from me? And I said, well, in honesty, I don't think they're much. And secondly, I didn't know I was keeping them from you. Well, I want you to publish them. I think they need to be published. So as a Christmas gift to her about 6-7 years ago, I self-published them. Nice. The title is Where Has Everybody Gone? Had a great picture of the Cooper River Bridge just empty at dawn. And that was my gift to my mother for that Christmas. But other people have wanted it since, and so that helped. Sort of, that was the fly buzzing around. You can do this, and why don't you do some more? And then when my friend said, "Why don't you write a book? Stop talking about it. Write the book." And I said, "Okay." And I sat down at this table that I'm sitting at right now. And, you pick out 25, 30 words. What does that look like? Well, that's all right. Do a little bit more, and all of a sudden you got 50, and then you got 100. And the more you'd sit down and be disciplined, and I'm not saying being disciplined all day long, sit down for an hour, hour and a half. I use an egg timer and put it behind my behind my laptop, the face of my laptop, and I don't even hear it until it goes off. And then that means I'm an hour in, I might dial up another 30 or 45 minutes, might say I'm satisfied. But my goal has always been, when I write, to do at least 1,000 words a day. And then go think about it. The other thing is, and I think this is universal among people who write, we love to read. I consider reading now to be a great big part of my workday, and to read all sorts of things. And as I said, I love military history. I love biography. I love fiction. I am a book junkie. What was it? Was it Erasmus who said, if I have a little money, I buy books, and if there's any left over, then I get some food. And I have books that just go up and down the staircase here in my house, because if I see something that looks interesting, I get it, and I try to get it. I always emphasize this: I try to get it from my local bookseller.
Nice.
Now, every now and then, as we all know, if you've got something you really want to get your hands on, you can go to Amazon, and they'll probably be able to get it for you. I'm sure the people that run Barnes and Noble are very nice. Those places give me the creeps. They just do. But if I can get it from my local bookseller here in Charleston, we have great Buxton books, Polly Buxton, and they're very sweet. And when you call them and order a book or books, you can, of course, go downtown and pick them up, or they will mail them to you at a very small additional charge. What they do is they wrap them in brown paper with holiday ribbon. So if you have 2 books that arrive, you've got 2 presents. And
nice.
It's an awfully nice thing. So, and this is my work. I'm working on. What am I? I'm not trying to go highbrow here. I'm working on. There's a lady named Webster who's just done a really terrific translation that obviously I read about and then ordered on the Iliad. And I'm enjoying that because that's really a walk down some memory lanes from long, long, long ago. I'm reading James Agee's A Death in the Family, which I hadn't read in 25, 30 years. And that is just some magnificent writing. I'm reading a thing by General James Livingston about a highly decorated Marine officer, combat officer. I'm in Vietnam and all through that. And what else have I got going on? I've got that book of essays by Joyce Carol Oates. I just dig around. And I also have another rule from the For What It's Worth department. I'm 73 years old now, and I'm a youthful 73, so I'm told, knock on wood. But I understand that I'm running out of runway. And so, and I don't resist that. It's impossible to do it. But I now, and have now for a couple of years, implemented a personal rule. If I'm reading something that was recommended or it looked interesting or whatever, and it doesn't really grab hold of me by halfway through, I put it down, move on to the next thing. because if it's not gonna take my interest at that juncture, I have very little faith that it will take my interest all the way through. So in the neighborhood I live in, we have these little wooden box libraries. Sort of, you can drive up on the curb and put a book in there, and I just feed stuff in there all the time. And either when I finished it or when I have finished it. So I encourage people, if you're not being engaged by what you're reading, think about, go find something else. And because otherwise all you're doing is wasting your time. You're running down a trail, a rabbit trail. You're off the main path. It's not helping.
So tell us about what you're working on right now, your most recent books out in the world. I have readers that are listening to this podcast, to your point. Right. They're looking for their next book to fall in love with, that they don't want to put down. They want to finish to the end and share. So let's talk about what you're writing. Let's tell us a little bit more so we can jump in.
I would suggest, if they're interested, these 3 books that turned into a trilogy. Let's see, Friday Calls, You Have Your Way, and Slim and None. And they have all been really well received. I never knew I was doing a trilogy until I started the second book, and I realized, this is turning into a trilogy. But they're all involve good boy, bad boy lawyer named Eddie Terrell, and many of his adventure and war stories. From time to time, Eddie jumps the tracks, but he's sort of like Robin Hood. He's good at heart, and he has people that help pull him back into the main thoroughfare. But they are sprinkled. This series is a little bit different in that there's not a lot of criminal law. There is in Friday Calls, the first one, which is something that actually is absolutely true. About 95% of Friday Calls is true. About 75% of You Have Your Way and Slim and None, about 75% of the last 2 are true. And there's this, it's not crime genre. What it is civil litigation and medical malpractice and torts, and can be really interesting if you have an interest in that. But if you want crime drama, I don't think I can serve your needs too good, because I quit practicing criminal law about 35 years ago. But anyway, but they're all good. As I said, I think I told you, I've read the first 2 in studio. I'm going in the studio to read the 3rd one last week here in November.
Nice.
People, I have been told, and so I'll be trustworthy to this regard. I've been told that I have a good voice for reading, so I've given it a shot, and people are buying those books. Nice. And now I'm starting to work on the next book, and the next book will be entitled "Okay, I've Seen Enough," and it is going to involve it's going to start in New York with a stripper named Crispy Panko, and I want to thank Anna Garden and the Food Channel for that one. And at any rate, and it's going to start in New York City. It's going to end up down here in Charleston and in Aiken, beautiful Aiken, South Carolina. And it's going to involve a really bad antagonist who is somewhat modeled on some of the Murdoch folk. And it's also going to involve another antagonist who this came right out of the Wall Street Journal. He was an investment banker who played fast and loose with the finances of other people. The feds were closing in on him. He got out of town, came to Charleston, took up with the high-flying front-running set, still had enough money to bluff his way through a lot of stuff. And a fella ended up dying. And he's a real person. And, of course, one of the nice things about the libel laws is once you're dead, they can say any much thing they want to about you. And so I've got these two bad guys from very disparate worlds who decide on the basis of their shared venality that they hook up and get together, and they get into an insurance fraud ring. And then my protagonist is going to be, we'll have some Eddie Terrell in there, but I've got a young lady named Kat Sewell, who is a nationally renowned horse trainer. And Kat trains out of Aiken half the year. And insurance companies going to ask Kat to get involved in trying to figure out what's going on with some livestock losses that they're significant money that they are experiencing. And so the plot has been rattling around in my head. And I tell you, the key to unlocking the treasure chest was Crispy Panko. Once I got that name, I could just see it. I can just see it. And so I'm starting to write that out and outline it and begin to expand on it. I want to do, I'd like to do a series of short stories. And as I said, you practice courtroom law for 45 years. You just have stories about cases and people, and it just lends itself. And then they help you build other fictitious characters. You can end up with an entire squadron of people working off of one or two cases, and you can see them. I mean, I can see them, and as I've said to you earlier, that's make sure you can see them, because once you can see them, you can write them. So,
okay, Vernon, before we go, let's talk about your website. Cooper River Books.
Right.
Talk about the website. Tell us what we're going to find when we go there. And then I have a unique way to end off our conversation today that I want to leverage your 45 years of experience with our closing question. But can you take us through the website? What do we find? Where should we go when we arrive? Tell us more.
I'm lucky, as you know, to have a wonderful publicist, the angelic and yet remarkably talented Hannah.
Yes.
Hannah said couple of years ago, we need to get a website up and running. And so she sort of said, will you write a little bit? And I said, sure. And what you find on Cooper River Books, I do a blog about every 2 or 3 weeks. I get to freestyle on that. We'll find a photograph that is satisfactory. And then there are descriptions of my books. We're getting ready to add Slim and None. We're going to add the poetry book. She may have already done that. But the bulk of it is the blogs and just ruminating. And I do a lot of book recommendations, both for and against. I was a handicapper for about 30, 35 years with a great outfit out of Los Angeles, where if North Carolina was playing Maryland, I worked with these people on helping set the lines. We were not a gambling service, not a betting service. We were an informational service, and we were sort of like stock pickers. So, okay, which side of North Carolina giving Maryland 6 points do you like? And I learned at the foot of a master named Mort Olson, and I did that for long before there was internet. I mean, every week I'd file a report. We'd stop at phone booths, on the interstate. I'd call out at L.A. And give them my report. But I learned to encapsulate game predictions in a very, if you will, efficient shorthand style. And to this day, I look at the goal sheet every week. It's great. And so you have that. And so when I do my little book reviews, pro and con, they're like that. I'm not going to be the New York Review of Books. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But the website's pretty much that. And I suppose somebody said, well, what are you going to do after you write these books? I said, I'm going to keep writing until I drop. because I don't have anything else much I want to do to be productive. I have plenty of ways to be not productive, which I enjoy very much. So
I love it. Yeah. So CooperRiverBooks.com is a website. It's an amazing website. Hannah is a joy as a podcast host to meet great guests.
Yep.
And for you to have her on your team, super smart move on your part. She's a great person on top of everything else. And I know she listens to this, so now she's blushing. So thank you, Hannah, for making this happen.
She deserves it.
She deserves it. She does. Okay, so now I want to draw, as we close off, on your background. Some of my listeners are struggling with who would ever want to hear my story? Who cares what I think? Who cares about my book? I'm going to stuff it in the desk in my bedroom and forget about it. I would love for you to do the closing argument as we close off today, drawing on your wisdom and your background. You're presenting your closing argument to the audience and to the jurors about a person who is struggling with their story. And I want you to convince the jury that each of us has a story and our story matters and we need to tell it. So you're now stepping up. It's your closing argument. I'm going to sit back and listen. Please present your closing argument.
If it please the court and my honorable defense counsel, my colleagues at the bar, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I stand here before you addressing the signal issue as to why or why not you should write your book, your story. And I will tell you that I'm going to hope that you will answer that in very short time in the affirmative, that you will say yes to that effort, period. I ask you as a curative to not be struggling, not be frightened or intimidated by the idea of your writing something down and providing it to somebody for their interest and enjoyment. And I'll give you a few reasons why that I think are core. One, if you truly have a story you want to write and truly want to tell, then it is therapeutic for you to sit down and do that. Remember, you can write anything you want, and if you don't like it, you can go back and change it or erase it. But in order to get the job done, you must write it. And once you write it, not only is it therapeutic, it is also the most wonderful feeling in the world that there is my book, there is my story. I actually did it. As we all know, ladies and gentlemen, many, many people will say, oh, I think I'll write a book. Oh, I think I'll write a book. But very, very, very few of them do it. So in order for you to step over that threshold of reality and begin to write your book, you've crossed the Rubicon. You cannot turn back. You must not turn back, because then you're being unfaithful to yourself. The other things are this wonderful sense, and I've touched on this, of self-satisfaction, that you have accomplished something that very few people will ever do. And that is unique. And somebody says, well, you're a lawyer, Vernon. You have war stories. You have tall tales. You have characters. It's all true. Every one of you, ladies and gentlemen of this jury, have characters and tall tales and wonderful stories. Not everything has to be about lawyers, nor should it be. My God. That's that old joke. What do you call a busload of lawyers off a cliff? And the answer is a good start. So I encourage you in these few minutes that we've been able to be together, write your story, write your book, sound your friends, sound your family, be persistent, be a, forgive me for the phrase, pain in the ass, but work on it and do it, because to not do it is you are letting yourself down. And the one person in this world you don't want to let down is yourself. I appreciate your time and attention, and I suggest you get to writing.
There it is. There it is. E. Vernon F. Glenn on the podcast. Cooper River Books is the website.com, and I am thrilled to have you on.
You're very kind.
And I thank your mother, 99 years of age coming up, and she's sounds like an amazing woman, and that she pulled out a piece of you from a desk and sparked this conversation to happen so many years later. Yeah. It's amazing. So thank you for making time for me today.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to the next amazing thing coming from you. So keep going.
Happy holidays to you and to all.
Excellent. Everyone, all the information in the show notes. Make sure you go and like and buy the book at your local bookstore and support amazing book retailers in your community. Ask for the book to be ordered, and they will have it shipped to you in a nice, fancy wrapped package with a nice little bow on top. And thank you for doing that today and putting a bow on the podcast. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Thanks for being part of the podcast again. Appreciate you investing time in the show, and if you're listening this far, thank you. One thing to keep in mind is we are looking for help and some support for the podcast. If you are able to help support our show, our little podcast show here, we can go over to livingthenextchapter.com, and all the instructions will be there to help support the show. It takes about $30 to $40 a month to do this, just for the hosting and all of that other stuff that we pay for. But if the show is giving you any value and you're enjoying what's happening here, would love any kind of support that you can offer. That would be great. And you being here and sharing the show helps us grow. Helps us get great new authors on the show, connect with other listeners, and build community. So whatever you can do to share this show today, I really appreciate it. Thank you for being here for Living the Next Chapter, and I can't wait to share the next one with you. Talk soon. Have a great day.
Ready to take your story to the next level? It's time to get off the sidelines and share your story. Join us at Creative Con, where you'll learn the actionable steps from experts and doers to turn your dreams into reality. Whether you're an aspiring podcaster, a seasoned pro, new or published author, speaker, creative, visionary, or dreamer crafting your message, this is your moment to shine. Our panels, workshops, keynotes, and networking opportunities will help you overcome the roadblocks, effectively articulate your message, and share your message to the masses. Discover how to position yourself as an industry leader by leveraging podcasting, publishing, production, and promotions. For those seeking purpose beyond the corporate grind, we'll ignite your passions and guide you to a more fulfilling path. If you've ever thought about breaking free from the 9-to-5 routine and taking control of your destiny, we'll show you how. Authors, you'll learn to expand your horizons and broaden your reach. Creative Con is where you'll find confidence, support, and a clear roadmap to success. If you've ever doubted yourself, this is your chance to step out of your comfort zone and make your creative dreams a reality. Secure your Creative Con tickets now for our virtual December 2nd event and our 2-day live event February 17th to 18th at creativecon.com. That's creativecon.com, creative with an 8. The future is yours. Speak it, write it, live it.